Renly Baratheon's pavilion smelled of blood and rose oil. The scented braziers that had once perfumed his war camp in sweet high-garden florals now mingled with the metallic tang of a king's cooling corpse. Silken pennants hung limp in the still night, their golden stags darkened by shadows cast from guttering torches. Brienne of Tarth knelt beside the bier, her gauntlets removed, one broad hand cradling Renly's rigid fingers as though warmth could be coaxed back by devotion alone. She whispered wordless prayers, half to the seven, half to the man he had been, not noticing how each breath billowed pale into the cold air. Outside, Storm's End's battlements loomed under a moon half-eclipsed by cloud. Stannis Baratheon's siege lines ringed the stronghold in grim silence after the sorcery of the night before. Somewhere beyond those palisades, Ser Davos Seaworth stood watch over duty and dread, guarding a secret he despised. He felt the weight of the shadow he had ferried beneath the Stormland's tides, a thing born of Melisandre and black purpose, a shade that had slipped through canvas and flesh alike to murder a brother. Yet within the gloom of Renly's pavilion, another fire smoldered, one unseen by the guards who paced in slow circuits, by the knights who wept in twos and threes, by Lady Catelyn Stark who kept her distance beside a pillar smeared with drying wax. That flame lived behind Melisandre's red eyes. She had entered without clangor, her scarlet skirts sweeping bloodied rushes, her ruby choker pulsing as if a second heart beat at her throat. None barred her path. All parted men better than blades. Brienne rose, reaching for her sword. Back, witch! Melisandre's gaze flickered to the blade but did not dwell. Sire, as you will be remembered in songs, you loved him. Her voice was temple calm, edges softened by an accent forged across narrow sea coasts. Love is a door the Lord of Light may yet push wide. Catelyn's breath caught. He is dead. We saw the thing that killed him. Whatever demon you serve, the night is dark, my lady. Melisandre lifted a finger. The ruby flared, bathing the pavilion in ember light. Yet in every night there is a sunrise waiting. Shall I prove it? Brienne's knuckles whitened on Oathkeeper's hilt. Enough riddles. Leave. But throughout the camp men whispered the broken refrain. A Baratheon has fallen. The Baratheon who smiled, who promised summer. Knights who had pledged to Renly alone stood listless at their posts. Tyrell bannermen wept behind curtain wheels. The tent itself seemed to sag beneath the weight of wasted hope. Melisandre whispered, half to herself, half to her god. A king's blood opened a door, but perhaps it need not close upon him forever. She stared down at Renly's marble cheeks as though reading secret script there. Azor, a high reborn, must wield Lightbringer. I followed Fire's counsel to Stannis, but the flames twist, they turn. A shadow assassin is not forged light. It is negation. My king misstepped. Perhaps Lawler shows me now another path. Catelyn's eyes narrowed like steel. Your paths cost lives. Yes, Melisandre agreed, but sometimes life is paid back in coin of fire. She laid her palms over Renly's breastplate, above the stag's sigil etched deep. Stag of summer, rise. The ruby blazed scarlet. Brienne flinched as heat rippled outward, curling the rushes to black husks. Wax globes burst and ran like molten gold. Catelyn shielded her eyes, her breath seared with furnace air. Outside, horses screamed and shields clattered, yet no soldier moved to intervene, for every shadow lengthening beyond the pavilion's canvas walls seemed alive, threshing like wings about to unfurl. Inside those wings, a hush deeper than death settled. Renly's corpse stiffened, jaw clenching as if bracing for a blow. A vein at his throat fluttered, stilled, fluttered again. His lungs spasmed, sucking hot air. Lips parted in a rattle that stole Brienne's voice from her throat. The stag's sigil glimmered orange, molten lines creeping like sunrise across steel. And from the valley of his ribs a heartbeat thundered. Once, twice, a drum signaling war return. Renly Baratheon gasped. He sat bolt upright, eyes glazed emerald shot through with ember motes, like autumn leaves lit from within. His first breath choked on coagulated blood. His second exhaled pure steam. Hands rose to tear at the gorget constricting his throat. then paused, fingers flexing as though rediscovering the concept of grip. Brienne collapsed to her knees, tears spilling freely. "My king!" she whispered, half exultation, half terror. Renly's gaze drifted to her, recognition dawning slow and terrible. "Brienne!" His voice rasped as though forged on a rasp. "Why so dark? I dreamt." He shuddered. "A hall of shadows, a stag of black flame. And he, my brother." Melisandre stepped back, her face luminous in ruby glow. "You crossed the cold river and returned. Remember the warmth that led you home. Remember the Lord of Light." But Renly recoiled from her. "You!" His gauntlet hand rose, trembling with rage and newborn vigor alike. "I know that face. A shadow with your eyes strangled me." Brienne rose, interposing her broad frame. "She did this, yet she brought you back. My king, command me." Outside the tent, a storm of confusion spread in concentric rings. Guards shouted, some falling to their knees as Renly's profile, pale but living, emerged at the pavilion's mouth. The torches guttered, relighting themselves in unnatural crimson. Banners fluttered though no wind blew, and far across the camp, into Tyrell quarters and Florent hides and swan pavilions, a tide of awe surged. King Renly lives. He rose from death by miracle. Ser Loras Tyrell, sleepless for grief, sprinted bareheaded through mud when he heard the cry. He slid before Renly, sobbing unashamed. "Forgive me for failing." "You failed no oath," Renly murmured, setting a shaking hand upon his lover's cheek. "Rise, we have much to do." But what? The realm now thrashed beneath 5 crowns, black sails, and white walkers none yet took seriously. In King's Landing, Joffrey wore a crown of iron roses. Stannis ringed Storm's End, his red woman whispering prophecy. Robb Stark carved footholds into the riverlands. Balon Greyjoy's krakens coiled along coasts. And in the frozen north, Jon Snow's blood cooled upon snow instead of warming with ghost fire. The balance of powers shifted noiselessly this night, like a chessboard rearranged by unseen hands. Renly drew his sword, heartwood hilt, golden stag pommel. The blade sang against scabbard metal, vibrating with resonance he had never felt in life. Sparks flew where steel kissed torchlight. The air smelled of lightning. Knights murmured that the sword burned not with flame but reflected a fire inside their own eyes, each man's hope igniting anew. "Gather the lords," Renly commanded, once lilting voice now echoing deeper. "We march at dawn." Stannis Baratheon dreamt of stone cracking. In his vision, Storm's End's great drum tower split down the center, disgorging molten stag shapes that stampeded across black sand beaches. He awoke sweating beneath coarse blankets in his command tent, only to hear a horn wail thrice from the distant ridge. Not an alarm, no, this call bore triumph. Ser Davos burst inside moments later, hair sweat-plastered. "My lord, word from the scouts, Renly lives." Stannis frowned with the gravity of a man carving his first wrinkle again. "Say that once more." They saw him ride Storm's drum road at dawn, clad in bright green, sword raised, banners behind, thousands cheering. His wounds gone. Stannis's jaw trembled. Rage or fear twinned. Witchcraft, Davos swallowed. Likely. They say the Red Woman stole into his camp before dawn. Yet she stands with him now, as if pledged. "The fires test me." Stannis paced, boots crunching frost inside the command tent. "Renly will claim the miracle. Lords love such spectacle. My rightful crown slips further." "We could parley," Davos offered. "Your grace, if Melisandre favored Renly now, perhaps her visions changed. She'd left your side." Silence. Stannis's hand twitched toward Lightbringer, still a glamoured sword, still cold to his grip despite red illusions. "If she betrayed me, I will pay treason with flame. Yet the realm must see one king anointed by godly fire. If Renly now burns brighter." He closed eyes, listening for the crack of stone again. Somewhere inside, an old fear awoke, that justice without love breeds only ash. South and west, in Highgarden's fragrant meadows, Mace Tyrell received ravens with trembling fingers. His daughter's betrothal to Joffrey had seemed cunning yesterday. Today, Renly's resurrection rendered the Queen-to-Be's station uncertain. Lady Olenna's laughter rang brittle. Corpses reviving? Either the stranger plays japes or the Red God is hungrier than we thought. Time to prune alliances, boy. Loras rode north at breakneck pace, leaving a storm of golden petals swirling in his wake. He carried with him a letter sealed by Renly's new signet, stark red wax shaped like a flaming stag. Its contents promised pardon and prominence to any Stormlander or Reach Lord who bent the knee anew. Many remembered Renly's charm, his youth, his feasts. Now they revered him as chosen of fire. What soldier would not follow a king who conquered even death? Atop the wall, Raven screamed, but no messages flew. With Jon Snow's lifeless body laid upon a pyre yet unlit, Samwell Tarly could not bear to burn him, and so the corpse slept in frost. Commander Bowen Marsh stewed in uncertainty. Wildlings within the gates milled without a leader they trusted. The Brotherhood without banners, returning south with news of dragons, urged Watch Brothers to look to flames for salvation. But no Red Priestess rode north this night. Jon's body stiffened. His dire wolf ghost lay outside, howling mournful, white fur ruffled by winds colder each dawn. Winter marched unhindered. On the King's Road between the Ruby Ford and Bitterbridge, Renly's host reorganized, banners once drooping now unfurled like sails before storm. The Tyrell rose beside the Baratheon stag, but both now edged by flames embroidered in crimson thread. Melisandre's suggestion, realized by seamstresses who feared to refuse. Soldiers whispered that the sigil shimmered by itself under starlight. Wise men kept such words quiet. Renly himself rode at head, armored anew in plate polished like mirror, but atop green enamel shone faint veins of copper that glowed molten when blade struck blade in sparring. His laughter, once musical, now rang deeper, carrying to the farthest files. Yet at dusk he withdrew to solitary prayer with Melisandre, who taught him hymns in a guttural tongue older than old Valyria. Brienne guarded those tent meetings, distrust coiling within her like a viper she dared not slay. Each night, Renly emerged eyes gleaming, speaking of duty, destiny, dawn. Catelyn Stark judged from afar, heavy with tidings she must bear south about Arya missing and Robb's campaigns. She weighed whether to trust a king returned by magic that had killed him, yet a king still kinder than any other. She approached Renly on the third moonrise after his revival. "My lord," she began, but he smiled. "Lady Catelyn, I've not forgotten our pact to aid your son. My path does not stray from honoring your cause. Ice and fire converge, I am told." His gaze drifted toward Melisandre, who stood beside a brazier, eyes reflecting flame. Catelyn's skin crawled. "Your grace," she said softly, "prophecies are riddles. Do not become their slave." Renly's grin, once boyish, hardened. A man who has seen death's door knows which side of it he prefers. If a god holds that hinge, best befriend him. Far to the east, across windy steppes, Daenerys Targaryen dreamt of a stag ablaze beneath a red comet tail. In her vision, the stag bowed to a trio of dragons that ringed him in fire, and then the dragons bowed in return. She awoke on Drogon's heaving back, heart pounding, uncertain whether to fear or follow such omen. Across the narrow sea, Varys read rumors of resurrection with fingers spidering across parchment. "A miracle," he whispered, "or a move upon my board." Littlefinger smiled like a cat discovering cream. Another chaos ladder rung revealed. Within Storm's End, Stannis' vanguard clashed with Renly's scouts in skirmishes bloodless but tense, neither side wishing to battle kin once more. Yet Melisandre stood upon ramparts lit by dawn, her red silks fluttering. She called Stannis by name, not his title, and though wind carried her words faintly, they pricked him like nettles miles distant. "Brother," she cried, voice amplified by unseen force, "come and kneel beside me in light." And her ruby flared bright as the sun peeking over sea. So bright soldiers covered eyes, seeing shapes of stags and swords dancing inside their lids. Stannis ground teeth. She shames me with my own priestess. Davos, weary, said, perhaps kneeling is not surrender if both brothers rise together behind one banner. Stannis turned a stare colder than granite. Stone does not bend, onion night, it breaks. Yet night by night desertions gnawed his camp. Men who once cheered the older Baratheon for stern justice now whispered that justice had chosen another vessel. A man who defeats death must surely defeat Lannisters. And what if the wildfire stores beneath King's Landing could not burn a king of flame? The Lannister court took note. Cersei ordered ravens to every reach. The false king Renly consorts with sorcery, an abomination outlawed by the faith. The High Septon, his purse lined with golden lions, proclaimed Renly's resurrection, a devil's mummer's show. But small folk hearing of miracles remembered songs of Azor Ahai and thought perhaps the Seven had slept too long. Tyrion Lannister watched the tide of rumor with unease. If the realm must choose between a sadistic boy king and a resurrected golden stag, he mused to Bronn over Arbor Red. I know where coin will be wagered. His scheming turned toward wildfire caches again. Fire to fight fire or to erase it. Nights grew shorter. Dawns burned crimson. Renly's army approached King's Landing by the Rose Road, picking up stragglers, sparrow bands, hedge knights seeking salvation. At Bitterbridge they found throngs singing hymns taught by Melisandre. For the night is dark and full of terrors, yet we the chosen carry dawn within. The words spread faster than plague. Renly addressed them atop a half-ruined sept with broken rainbow panes. I have been given life anew, and with it purpose. I shall not spill blood for vanity but to right the realm. I will end the Lannister tyranny, mend the realm's wounds, and answer darkness from beyond the wall. His sword lifted skyward. Clouds parted, revealing the sun as though summoned. Thousands knelt, not cheering but chanting the Lord of Light's name. Loras, standing at Renly's side, felt both pride and shiver. This was the man he loved yet not. There was steel where velvet had been, flame where laughter. But it was still Renly's hand that squeezed his promise in the pressure. Brienne watched Melisandre watching Renly, and in the red woman's smile she glimpsed ownership, as though the king were a blade she had tempered. Brienne resolved never to sheath her mistrust. Across Blackwater Bay, ships flew mirrors of Renly's new sigil. Red priests traveled among decks, lighting braziers whose smoke sweetened sea air with cinnamon and cloves. They spoke of Lightbringer, of sacrifices yet to come. Some knights murmured that sacrifice meant goats and lepers. Others feared nobler blood might feed the flame. But hope, once lit, is hard to douse. Catelyn Stark gazed from prow, clutching a letter from Robb unopened. She wondered whether her northern son would even recognize the south she sailed through now. Full of gods older than old Nan's tales of kings reborn, she asked the wind to carry a truth to Winterfell. Prepare, for the game's pieces burned anew. In Bravos, the faceless men debated silent over bowls of still water. Life returned from death unbalances accounts. Perhaps a debt must be reclaimed. A coin was set aside. In Old Town, the maesters argued over ravens. Some insisted no magic could raise flesh without leaving rot. Others quoted scrolls deemed apocryphal. Archmaester Marwyn read one such scroll, smiled a shark's smile, and packed his satchel. At last, the walls of King's Landing shimmered in distance, heat-hazed. Renly's host halted upon the Blackwater rushes. Siege lines spread like roots of a vast tree. Melisandre raised arms and crimson plumes curled skyward, coalescing into shapes watchers swore were dragons breathing dawnfire. Within the city, panic churned. Small folk gathered at Sept steps, begging the Seven for a miracle to match the Red Gods. Septon stammered. None came. Tyrion stood with Haelene the pyromancer atop the city wall, watching Renly's green host glint under morning sun. Loose wildfire and the bay will boil, Haelene croaked. Perhaps, Tyrion said. Yet if the man below does not burn, we only roast ourselves. Behind them Joffrey strutted, demanding to lead the sortie. Cersei forbade it. Tyrion did not protest. Better an unwounded king than a martyred one eclipsed by a resurrected rival. Yet he wondered, If Renly were unstoppable flame, might water defeat him? He sent ravens to the Reach, promising honors if any lord could prove Renly mortal. Night fell, and in Renly's command tent Melisandre traced glyphs upon his armored chest using murink that smoked when touched. The city walls stand thick, but walls crumble under faith, she whispered. Renly's voice carried new weight. Faith alone cannot breach stone. I won my lords with feasts once. Now I must win hearts with history's turning. He looked past her, toward Brienne, who guarded the flap. Sire, tomorrow we parley. If Lannisters refuse surrender, we take the city. No cruelty. Any man who lays torch to home or temple I will hang. Melisandre's ruby pulsed. Mercy is weakness. Mercy is rule, Renly countered. Else what meaning has my return? Brienne almost smiled at hearing the old Renly flicker through. Yet she slept none that night, haunted by shadow memories. Dawn's light revealed two parley groups meeting upon a spit of river sand. Renly rode out unhelmed, green cloak trimmed crimson, sword sheathed. Opposite him Tyrion rode a shaggy courser, helm ornamented with lion's tail. My lord Hand, Renly greeted, voice carrying to soldiers lining banks. Have you come to bend the knee? Tyrion inclined head. I come to prevent slaughter. The king. Boy, Renly interjected. Your nephew's claim rests upon incest and fear. Mine rests upon rightful blood and miracle. Miracles are slippery proof, Tyrion said. Some will brand you sorcerer. The faith will follow the sunrise. Renly smiled, a flare of old charm. Deliver to Cersei our terms. Open gates, surrender child king, yield the iron throne. The queen mother may keep her life and lands, if she swears fealty. Do so by sunset and no one else need die. Tyrion considered, lips pursed. And if the gates stay shut? Renly drew sword. The blade caught dawn's light and burst in mirrored flame, as though the sun itself burned along its edge. Gasps lifted from both banks. Then I, who beat death, will breach stone. The words hung chilling on warm air. Tyrion bowed, spurred horseback. Sunset neared. No white flag rose. Instead, King's Landing's gates yawned, disgorging ranks of gold cloaks and sellswords wearing lion sigils. Trumpets blared. Joffrey rode at their head, crossbow in tiny fists, face pale from fear disguised. As wrath, Renly watched, sorrow and resolve dueling behind ember-flecked eyes. He signaled archers to hold, riders to advance, shields locked but swords down. One last chance, he murmured. Across the field, wildfire pots were wheeled into line, their bronze bellies reflecting sunset. Tyrion's plan to drown flame in flame played out, but the pyromancers misjudged wind. Sparks leapt early, green tongues licking chainmail. A pod burst. An emerald plume roared skyward, then toppled, spilling napalm fire onto Joffrey's own cavalry. Horses shrieked. Men flamed like candles. Chaos erupted. Renly spurred forward through smoke, his blade carving arcs of orange reflection. As wildfire swallowed screams, some gold cloaks cast spears aside. They saw Renly ride unharmed through leaking green infernos, ember motes dancing about his cloak. They knelt. Joffrey turned, meaning to flee, but a flaming horse crashed before him. He tumbled, crown flying. Renly dismounted in a single flowing motion, boots hissing on scorched earth. Green flames parted like curtains, leaving him and the boy king alone in a circle of cinders. Joffrey scrambled backward, crossbow trembling. Sorcerer, demon. Renly's eyes glowed faintly. Be still. I would not kill a child.
Joffrey snarled, loosed bolt.
The quarrel sizzled through warm air and vanished to ash inches from Renly's breast. The boy's mouth hung open. Renly knelt. Your war ends. Your blood may buy peace if wisely spent. Bend the knee and live. Tears carved soot on Joffrey's cheeks. He sank, chest heaving. Renly rose as gold cloaks around them lowered pikes. Above, the wildfire storm dimmed, smothered by soggy earth flung by terrified engineers. Tyrion, watching from a tower slit, exhaled long. Well, that is that. The Iron Throne chamber smelled of smolder and rose oil days later when Renly ascended its black blades. Melisandre stood beside him, her ruby casting rube-scent gleams upon twisted steel. Lightbringer shall be tempered in hero's hand, she whispered. Yet Renly's sword remained ordinary metal, though it still shone oddly in flame. The realm bent knee. Tyrells with proud relief, Stormlords with fierce joy, even some Lannister bannermen hedging bets. But whispers spread. Renly's heart no longer beat wholly his own. At night, watchers swore the ruby at Melisandre's throat winked in unison with veins at his temple. And inside Renly, dreams grew darker. Of burning forests north of a wall, of a girl with silver hair and dragons circling above dragonstone skies, of an icy king whose blue gaze pierced flame's veil. He awoke each dawn sweating, but determined to knit the realm before winter's jaws closed. In the far north, a dire wolf howled to a failing star. Ghost's cry echoed across snows where Jon's body lay unburned. Ettalit at last summoned courage to strike flint. He would honor the dead. Yet the flame refused to catch. Every spark died upon the first black curl of cloth. The air itself seemed to swallow fire. It swallowed, stepped back. Bugger me, even the strangers gone south. Then a warm wind stirred over the pyre, impossible this side of the wall. Snow melted atop Jon's brow. A single ember leapt from flint to wood, glowed, then brightened to gold. Ghost ceased howling, eyes fixed upon the spark. The ember sank into Jon's chest as though into soft wax. A heartbeat thudded. Far away, in King's Landing, Renly Baratheon gasped and clutched his breast. Melisandre watched, fear rippling crimson across her features. "What stirs you?" Renly's voice was hoarse. Another flame, just lit. In the silence that followed, a crack echoed like distant ice splitting. Somewhere, prophecy rerouted its river once again, promising that no resurrection is singular, that life granted by fire may also awaken ice. The game's pieces burned, but the board endured, awaiting the next slow move. Approximately 32,000 characters, part 1 of the full 60,000 character narrative. Let me know when you're ready for the continuation, and we'll delve deeper into Renly's reign, the fate of Jon Snow's renewed spark, and the looming clash between fire-touched kings and the darkness beyond the wall. Renly Baratheon stirred in his chamber of wrought obsidian and steel, the heart of the red keep pulsing around him like some vast and sleepless beast. The night was muggy with late summer heat, yet he felt a chill that traveled his spine bone by bone. Outside, the city murmured, distant laughter from wine sinks in Flea Bottom, the clank of chains from Blackwater wharfs, the sob of waves kissing stone. All of it braided into a lullaby for a capital not quite sure whether to fear or adore its miracle king. He rose, bare feet ghosting across rugs imported from Karth, and reached the window grate. The moon was little more than a silver shard, low over the sea. Far below, torches along the mud gate drew trembling lines on oily water. He pressed a palm to the mullioned glass. It came away wet with condensation. The world seemed to sweat with anticipation. Behind him, the ruby glow of a single brazier picked out Melisandre's shape where she sat cross-legged upon an embroidered cushion, hands resting on knees, eyes wide and still. She had not spoken for hours. Indeed, she scarcely blinked. Her silence filled corners, seeped beneath doors, became the unspoken grace said before every meal the small council shared. Renly turned. In the semi-dark, he could see only the lamplight limning her cheekbones and the dull glimmer at her throat. He wondered whether she slept with those eyes open, or whether sleep itself found no purchase on a body fed so constantly by fire. "I felt it again," he whispered. She inclined her head a fraction. "The other light. North," he said. "Far." A spark, faint but insistent. It pulled at me. Her lips barely moved. "The fire's opposite rises. Not ice, something between, yet colder than death. Trust the flames. Only they can show you how to master it. I would rather master grain stores, shipyards, the love of small folk," Renly murmured. He poured himself a cup of chilled water from a silver flagon, drank deeply, and watched the firelight shiver where his pulse beat in the hollow of his throat. You promised me a realm united, yet I spend half my days coaxing bread from bakers who mistrust red priests and half my nights soothing lords who fear witchcraft beneath their roofs. Melisandre's voice remained an ember's crackle. Miracles are knives cutting two ways. You bleed a little while your enemies bleed a river. He paced to the bed's end, where a steel stand held his sword, bright as fresh wakefire on the Myrish coast. I cannot build a realm on bleeding. The Lannisters may be cowed, but they are not defeated. Cersei remains in her chambers, spinning webs. Stannis festers outside Storm's End, and Robb Stark holds Riverrun with a wolf's teeth. If I march against one, the others nip at my flanks. I need alliances, not fear. Melisandre's gaze never wavered. Alliances may be forged in fire as surely as steel. The Tyrells follow for love and pride, the Storm Lords for blood, the small folk for spectacle. Bind the North with truth sung from flames, and even the wolf will heed you. Renly saw a flicker then, a vision threading inside his mind like silverfish burrowing parchment. A dire wolf ablaze, its fur white as snow, its eyes red as coals, pacing a frozen forest under seething green auroras. When it lifted its muzzle, he felt the distant spark roar brighter. He blinked, the vision gone. Melisandre's ruby pulsed. You glimpse his path. The fire shows what may be. Who is he? A sword in darkness, she said. A king who was not, yet might be. Slay him or save him. The choice is yours. But the world will hinge upon him soon. Renly rubbed fingers across his beard. New growth, a darker sable since his return. If I march north, the Reach mutters that I abandon the harvest. If I stay, winter devours the wall unopposed. There must be another way. You have seen Lightbringer unlit, she said, because you have not enough darkness against which to blaze. Bring the two flames together, yours and his, and the sword will know its purpose. Renly lifted the weapon. In the gloom, its mirrored face captured the faint red of the brazier and tossed it back tenfold, so the walls seemed to ripple with ghost flame. Yet no warmth radiated from the steel. He slid it once more into its scabbard. Tomorrow I ride to the September. The High Septon preaches heresy against my crown. I will soothe the faith, not burn it. The faith blinks at shadows it cannot name. Show them dawn and they will kneel. She closed her eyes at last, lashes resting like soot smudges against her cheeks. Sleep, king of summer reborn. Dreams weave your future tonight. Renly thought of dreams. Sisters laughing in Storm's End's courtyard long ago, Loras's breath warm at his ear, Robert's roar, Stannis' silence. He extinguished lamps one by one, left only the brazier's heart pulse to guard them both, and slipped into uneasy slumber. In the dungeons beneath the Red Keep, steel doors groaned apart. Brienne of Tarth ducked beneath the lintel and entered the oubliette where Cersei Lannister now dwelt. The former Queen Mother had chosen dignified silence at first. Now she gnawed on it like a knife with no edge. Even so, when she lifted her gaze to Brienne's, green eyes still flashed wildfire. Come to gloat, wench? I come to carry his grace's terms, Brienne said, helm tucked beneath arm. Her voice filled the low stone ceiling and made torch flames gutter. Confess the incest, renounce all claim for your children and their issue. Vow peace to the throne sworn under the light of the Seven and the Lord of Light, and you may retire to Casterly Rock with income sufficient to live. Cersei laughed, raw, shredding the air. Renounce my children? Joffrey is dead, the little fool, trampled fleeing your flame-kissed night. Myrcella lies hostage in Dorne. Tommen is all I have, and even he sits in some far tower under Tyrell eyes. I have nothing left to renounce except my pride. Pride alone can topple castles, Brienne said. She thought of Stannis' looming siege towers beyond Storm's End when she rode to fetch Catelyn last year. Pride had cost many lives there. Swallow it and taste peace. Cersei stood. The chain shackling her ankle rattled like old coins. Tell your pretty king this. Sunlight fades, yet lions hunt well at dusk. She stepped forward until the manacle yanked her short and raised her wrists. Purple bruises ringed them where iron bit flesh. Look upon me and know that you, too, can fall. Robert did. Joffrey did. Even Targaryens with dragons did. Brienne felt the weight of Oathkeeper across her back. His grace has returned from death once. Threats ring hollow. Death kissed him, Cersei smiled thinly, and may find him sweeter the second taste. Brienne's hand twitched at the hilt. A slow breath steadied her. I will convey your refusal. Good night. She turned away, boots striking stone. Behind her, Cersei's laughter followed, half feral, half forlorn. The next morning broke hot and windless. Bells tolled prime from every sept spire. Crowds flooded cobbled streets chanting, "Long live King Renly." Many waving linen pennons painted with the burning stag. Bakers gave crusts to ragged boys. Wine sellers offered cups at half price. The city basked in the novelty of hopeful rule, yet gossip rustled beneath. Tales of a witch in scarlet weaving spells in the throne room. Of a crimson comet split by ebony wings far to the east. Of a white wolf howling a king awake beyond the world's edge. Renly rode a milk-white courser toward the great September of Baelor, clad in emerald silk under an open silver-edged cloak. Ser Loras rode at his right, wearing new rainbow armor freshly forged. Polished steel devoid of gemstones, for the faith still forbade ostentation during mourning for Joffrey. Brienne rode behind, eyes everywhere, hand never far from sword grip. At the September steps, a sea of parchment-white Septon's robes parted. The High Septon, grand crown of crystal and spun glass atop his brow, bowed low. Renly dismounted in a single practiced motion and climbed the steps. The High Septon's eyes flickered toward Melisandre where she glided behind, but politeness damned any rebuke. Inside, candles filled alcoves like stars trapped in stone. The air smelled of incense, nutmeg, sweet cedar, a hint of lemon verbena. Beneath the stranger's looming visage, Renly knelt. The High Septon launched into ritual prayers lauding the Seven's mercy in restoring a king. Renly listened, though he felt a phantom tug, cold wind brushing inner spirit, urging him north again. Melisandre's presence behind him was a furnace. When the prayer ended and the High Septon intoned blessings, she stepped forward, ruby blazing brighter than any stained glass glow. The Seven watched, but the Lord of Light acted, she said, voice echoing high into the ribs of the dome. Let stone witness truth. She lifted a hand. The candles behind the altar flared scarlet, burning twice as bright. Gasps rippled through the September white-robed septas shrank back, but the High Septon held ground. Renly rose, placed a calming palm over Melisandre's wrist. We are many faiths beneath one sky, he said, voice warm, resonant, practiced from years charming tourney pavilions. The realm's peace shall grow only when fires and septfires burn in harmony, not hatred. He turned to the High Septon. I ask the faith's blessing, and I pledge to protect its followers. In return, I ask the faith to shepherd the small folk against fear and famine. Winter's shadow creeps south. The High Septon studied Renly. Tall, alive, rumor-wrought, and bowed again. The Seven will guide your grace. We shall pray for every hearth. Renly exhaled. For a moment the pulsing in his breast quieted. Yet as he left the sept, the bells overhead clanged once. An errant note, dissonant, metallic. 3 ravens circled above the dome, cawing. Omen or coincidence he could not decide. Hundreds of leagues away, the wind screamed across the fist of the first men. Samwell Tarly clutched the hilt of his dagger, blue tears freezing in his beard. In the ring beyond the firelight, shapes loomed. Pale giants with eyes like shards of moon. The others had come. Men of the Night's Watch formed a ragged semicircle, torches raised, but flames sputtered when the creatures stepped nearer. Jon Snow stood among them, alive, breath steaming, cloak unmended. Where he'd lain dead days before, a scar now blackened his chest like lightning frozen mid-fork. Ghost padded circles at his heel, hackles raised, white fur ruffled by unnatural wind. Jon lifted Longclaw. The Valyrian steel glimmered in frost-tinged light, but around its fuller, faint orange threads flickered, barely visible, like hairline cracks where warmth seeped. He felt heat beneath his palm, though the night itself seemed carved from glaciers. A white walker advanced, spear of glassy ice leveled. Jon breathed once, steadying the tremor in his newly woken limbs, and parried. Steel met otherworldly weapon with a shriek that rang mountains. Sparks, blue, orange, white, fountained. Jon pivoted, swung, connected. The walker staggered. Frost bloomed where Longclaw bit. A second stroke cleaved straight through, and the creature burst into powder that blew away on the wind. Brothers cried out, a mixture of terror and triumph. Sam clutched his obsidian knives. Dolorous Ed muttered a prayer both blasphemous and heartfelt. Jon pivoted to face the rest. "Hold fast," he rasped, voice raw smoke. "Fire with me." Torches lifted. Arrows tipped in dragonglass flew. Steel glinted. Wave after wave the watch met shadows incarnate and did not falter. Jon felt each heartbeat thunder like his own resurrection drum. With every swing of Longclaw, the faint orange fissures grew brighter, as though his weapon remembered another, newer fire. After what felt like hours, the last walker shattered, and silence fell broken only by the labored breaths of living men. Jon lowered his sword. Snowflakes hissed where they touched its blade, dissolving. "Lord Snow," Gren breathed, eyes wide. "How?" "No time," Jon answered. "We ride for the wall. Now." He gestured, and the company formed ranks. As they marched down the slope, Ghost trotted before them, muzzle lifted to a wind no one else could smell. Somewhere far to the south a king he'd never met stiffened in courtly conversation, eyes darting north without knowing why. In a rookery crowning the eyrie, Maester Coleman adjusted wire-rimmed spectacles and unfurled a raven's message. Its wax bore a sigil unfamiliar, a burning stag. Words within announced Renly's throne, demanded Lord Robert Arryn's fealty, promised safety of trade routes to Gulltown. The boy lord flapped arms like hawk wings when he heard, shrieking joy at talk of knights in shining green. Yet Peter Baelish stood at the window, fingers tapping pointed beard. For every new king, Littlefinger saw 2 new ladders to climb and 3 to topple. He penned a polite reply pledging watchful consideration, then wrote a second letter in cipher destined for Riverrun. Alliances might shift, but chaos remained his favored currency. In Dragonstone's shadowed hall, Stannis Baratheon pored over parchment by candlestub. Siege progress, stagnant. Morale, wavering. Fresh water, scarce. His lords pressed him to fall back upon King's Landing with sellswords hired in lists, but pride shackled him to Storm's End's walls. His walls, his castle by right. Ser Davos stood at his elbow. "The men fear your brother's sorcery. They desert nightly." Stannis's jaw squared. "Brother no longer. Renly died beneath treachery. What walks now is puppet. Puppets cannot muster half the realm," Davos said gently, "nor charm the faith, nor break wildfire lines unharmed. Then we find the strings." Stannis straightened. "Melisandre betrayed me. I mislaid my faith in her. But she is mortal. If we sever her, his spell unravels." Davos shifted uneasily. He had ferried one shadow babe and never wished to see another. "We could slip a man inside. The Red Keep cellars still host smugglers I know." "No," Stannis said. "I myself will break those strings. The throne is mine or ashes." He turned coastal charts, traced a fingertip along fingers of land south of Driftmark. "A fleet can land at Massey's Hook. Renly enjoys reach levies but little navy. We strike the gullet, cut his grain from Old Town, starve him, and lords will recall who is rightful." Davos's mind leapt to gulls screaming over black water. "We risk the royal fleet." "A risk worth a crown," Stannis replied, voice flat as iron filing. Weeks spilled like sand into a wind-tossed glass. Renly's reign settled but did not root. Grain stores filled, yet whispers roamed corridors. His grace never tires, eats sparingly, spends nights beside the red woman chanting tongues none recall. Some maids insisted his eyes glinted ember red when angered. Merchants shrugged. Small folk prayed. Lords weighed options. Brienne kept watch, often outside chambers where Melisandre tutored king and lords in Lorite scripture by lamplight. One such dusk, she leaned against cool stone near the small council door, listening to a rising hymn. We stand against shadow, we bear dawn within. Our blades beat the rhythm, our hearts forged a flame. Their voices braided a haunting chord, half prayer, half battle march. Brienne's skin prickled. She loved her king. She feared the thing he became. But fear did not sway loyalty, only sharpened it. She vowed then never to leave his side until her doubts were quenched by truth. Or death. Loras Tyrell noticed change as well. When he lay with Renly, the man's skin sometimes radiated heat, yet his kiss felt distant, as though part of him burned elsewhere. One moonless night Loras rose post-passion and found Melisandre in the anteroom watching them, ruby aglow. "You should knock," he hissed, tugging robe closed. Her smile flickered. A king shared belongs partly to his god. Loras's hand strayed to a dagger pommel. "Touch him unbidden and you meet steel. And if he commands me?" She tipped her head. "Would you deny a miracle king the means to see another dawn?" Loras faltered. In that beat's pause she turned and drifted away, leaving the sweet scent of cinnamon to mingle with Loras's jealousy. Beyond the wall, Jon Snow and his ragged column reached Castle Black at dawn 3 days after the battle on the Fist. The gate groaned open, and men gaped to see him astride a horse gray with sweat, cloak stiff with frost. He swung down. The scar on his chest gleamed black as obsidian. Bowen Marsh hurried forth, face pallid. "We thought you." "I was," Jon said, and said no more. He called for every ranger, builder, steward. In the yard he spoke plain. The others marched south. Giants of ice moved behind them. The wall's magic shivered. Dragonglass must be mined from old caches. Steel must be reforged. They must send riders to every king begging wildfire, dragonfire, stormfire, any heat to stand against cold. Some brothers whispered he spoke heresy. Others hailed him as a child of prophecy. Sam looked on with shining eyes. When Jon finished, Ghost loosed a howl that knifed the morning sky. Its echo flew south like a thrown spear. In the red keep's Godswood, Renly dropped to one knee mid-stride, clutching breastplate. Sap-settled dewdrops fell from weirwood leaves onto his gauntlet. He felt ice and blood, foreign yet kin. When at last he mastered breath he stood, wiped sweat, and stared at twin carvings upon the heart tree. Stag and wolf, both scorched into bark by some hidden hand. That night a raven arrived from the Eyrie. Lord Robert Arryn bent the knee but begged protection from looming snowstorms. Before Renly could draft reply, another raven fluttered in, its wax seal black. Stannis's fleet had sailed, rumored to strike grain fleets near the arbor. Small council convened at once. Mace Tyrell blustered for naval pursuit. Paxter Redwine offered ships. Littlefinger suggested letting Stannis starve himself chasing phantom vessels. Renly tapped gold-inked quill to parchment yet wrote nothing. He sensed something worse than famine emerging in the ink's dark pools. Melisandre's voice cut debate. "Let brothers war. The true war waits in ice. Send forces north, claim prophecy. A king of fire must meet a king of winter." May scoffed. "The north is snow and nettles. Our strength lies in reach wheat." Renly rose. "Strength lies where doom festers." He paced to the window, looking northward though stone blocked view. "I ride in 3 days to Winterfell with 10,000 seasoned men. Lord Tyrell will remain hand in King's Landing, defending grain routes. Paxter's fleet will shadow Stannis. Littlefinger will secure coin. Ser Loras and Brienne ride with me." Silence rippled across the table. One by one, lords inclined heads. Mace, cheeks mottled red, swallowed pride and assented. Vast wheels began to turn. Blacksmiths hammered spare suits for frost. Bakers packed hardtack into barrels. Maesters copied maps of the King's Road, marking fords and granaries. In the smoky courtyard, Renly addressed the gathered troops. You followed me from tourney fields to throne rooms. Now I ask more. Follow me into winter's heart, for only there can summer thrive again. They cheered, a roar that shook birds from ramparts. Melisandre watched from a balcony, the ruby at her throat blazing like noon sun. In its heart, a mote of blue light flickered briefly, then vanished. On the witching hour of the third night, Brienne sought the gods' wood for solitude. She found Loras already there, seated beneath moonlit leaves that shivered silver green. You worry, Brienne said. Wouldn't you, if the man you love burned from inside out? Loras rubbed silver light between fingers. Sometimes when he sleeps, I see a red glow behind his eyelids. Brienne sank to the grass. He is still Renly, yet changed. She hesitated. If the fire within him turns him to something he would despise, would you stop it? Loras swallowed. I would die first, but I fear death would not stop him. He traced a leaf's veining. Perhaps love can. Brienne looked up at the faces carved high in the weirwood, mouths twisted into silent counsel. She thought of oaths, of the feel of Renly's hand warm upon hers when he dubbed her anointed. She whispered, or perhaps steel. Neither spoke more. Moon slid behind clouds, and when it emerged, they were gone, leaving only two impressions in dew-damp earth, shadows of loyalty and doubt. On the last dawn before the march north, Renly stood atop Maegor's holdfast and watched the city stir. Smoke from cook-fires braided the morning, mingling with harbor fog until ships seemed to float not on water but on dream. Somewhere a child laughed. Somewhere else a woman screamed at her pig-headed husband. Life. He felt it all in his veins. Blood that was once still, heart that once ceased. He closed eyes, drew breath scented of tar and seaweed, and tasted salt. For a moment he remembered death's taste. Cold iron, dirty straw, velvet black. He would never taste it again. He opened his eyes to find Melisandre beside him. The North calls. Yes. Remember what the flames teach. To win the dawn, you must be willing to set night ablaze. Renly touched the pommel of his sword. In dawnlight, the metal caught a flicker, something almost but not quite flame. He turned. I do not want dawn bought with innocent screams. Innocent coal feeds the forge too, she said softly. Steel does not ask whose blood quenched it. He stared at her a long time, then descended the steps, cloak trailing. The procession out of King's Landing was 1,500 yards long. Knights glittering, men-at-arms marching to kettledrum cadence, wagons laden with oats and salted beef, smiths and farriers, maesters and leechers. Banners streamed. The crowned stag aflame, the rose, the swan, the griffin of House Connington returned from exile to swear fealty. At the head rode Renly, Brienne at right, Loras at left, Melisandre half a horse length behind crimson-robed. The city cheered, though some faces glinted fear behind forced smiles. Then gates closed and dust swallowed the column. Hours later, in Tyrion Lannister's solar, Varys unfolded a fresh parchment. Word from Bravos that gold cloaks stationed there had deserted to unknown patron. Tyrion rubbed temples. Another ladder, spider? More like a bridge, Varys said. And an icy one by whispers. 2 weeks into the march, frost-crusted campfires at dawn. The Reach lords shivered in fur mantles hastily sewn. Renly's breath plumed strong. Scouting reports told of wildling raids past the gift, of a dead village where bodies were burned black but the snow around them did not melt. Rumor rode faster than ravens. Men muttered about demons of ice, blue-eyed giants, silent storms. One night near the neck, Renly was awakened by a hush, total, unnatural. He emerged from his tent to find every flame guttering low, as though pressed beneath glass. Above, auroras rippled green and purple like bruises across star-specked skin. Beyond the pickets, a lone figure advanced, tall, cloaked in tatters of black, eyes burning hue of frost-rimmed moon. The sentries froze, blades half-drawn. Renly strode forward, sword in hand. Loras and Brienne flanked him. Melisandre appeared wordless as breath. The figure threw back his hood. Jon Snow's face glimmered in the eerie light, pale, haunted, alive. Behind him glided Ghost, fur shimmering like hoarfrost. "Your Grace." Jon's voice rasped, miles of cold roads caught in his throat. "I bring warning from the end of the world." Renly lowered blade but not guard. He felt the tug stronger than ever, like twin magnets colliding. Melisandre's ruby flashed once, twice, then steadied. Jon looked from king to priestess and back. "The dead march. If we do not unite, your crown will be bones for their thrones." Renly sheathed the sword. "Then let fire walk with ice," he said, words tasting of prophecy he had never read. He extended a gauntlet hand. Jon regarded it, then clasped forearm to forearm. Heat met cold. Steam curled where their breaths mingled. Soldiers watching felt hair raise along necks. Somewhere, unseen, the wall groaned like old wood. Melisandre's eyes widened, not in triumph, but alarm. She saw flickers. A sword forged of sunrise and starlight, wielded by neither man yet both. A throne of snow and flame. A city weeping molten tears. A darkness deeper than night coiling to snuff both fires. For the first time since Ashai's black stones, gooseflesh prickled her arms. The king reborn and the wolf returned stood ankle-deep in frost, encircled by men clutching torches that now burned bright as noonday. In distant skies, comets split, one red, one blue, arcs crossing like blades. The dawn of endings had begun. The camp at the edge of the neck breathed in hushed rhythms, hundreds of fires flickering low beneath a sky charged with green auroras. In the faint phosphorescence, Renly Baratheon and Jon Snow sat across a scarred oak table fashioned hastily from cart planks, the map between them trembling in night breeze. A single lantern guttered overhead. Its flame leaned alternately toward each man as if undecided to whom it owed allegiance. Renly's eyes, emerald washed with ember flecks, studied Jon's gaunt features. The scar along Jon's chest, just visible where his cloak parted, pulsed faint orange veins at the edges. Mirror glow to the ruby at Melisandre's throat where she stood behind Renly's left shoulder. Ghost lay at Jon's boot heels, muzzle resting on crossed paws, red eyes reflecting the lantern like live coals buried in snow. "We share an enemy older than any crown," Jon said, voice roughened by nights without rest. "The walkers have stirred larger hosts than on the fist. A dozen whites rise for every corpse. At Hardhome they slaughtered thousands. Free folk, brothers, even mammoths. If the wall falls, we all lose." Renly traced a fingertip along icy blue strokes Daeron I had once inked for rivers northwest of Winterfell. "My army counts near 20,000 under arms, half archers. But armor forged for justs will crack in those temperatures. Tell me what weapons avail against creatures made of winter itself." "Dragonglass," Jon answered, "and Valyrian steel if a man's lucky to wield it. Fire, whenever you can carry enough fuel." He nodded toward the scabbard at Renly's hip. "Your sword behaved strangely at King's Landing. Can you rely on flame to bloom again, without wildfire at your feet?" Renly unsheathed the blade a finger breadth. Lamplight swam along its mirror surface, yet no warmth bled forth. "The fire comes when it chooses," he admitted. "Perhaps when hearts beat together." Melisandre's gloved hands tightened on the chairback. "Lightbringer awakens when the champion of R'hllor faces true night. Your union." Her eyes strayed from Renly to Jon. "May be the crucible." Jon locked gaze with her, unflinching. "I follow the old gods. Whatever fire lives in me came without your lord's leave." She smiled, not kindly. "All flames answer one name in the end." Brienne of Tarth stepped forward from the tent opening, helm under one arm. "His grace requires rest." She stared directly at Melisandre, blue eyes like whetstone, "and perhaps distance from riddles." Renly closed the sword. "Enough. We are allies tonight. Tomorrow we ride to Moat Cailin. There we'll test how well fire and ice share a forge." Jon inclined his head. "My rangers will guide you through the bog. Crannogmen hold hidden causeways. With their leave, we save a week. He rose, secured wolf fur tighter about shoulders. Dawn comes soon. I need to send ravens to Winterfell to Eastwatch. He paused at the entrance, looking back as if to mark this exact arrangement of destinies. King of Summer reborn, priestess of fire, knight sworn to honor. Then he vanished into auroral dark, ghost padding soundless at his heel. Renly exhaled, rubbing temples. He walks like a man whose soul drags chains. A soul touched by cold, Melisandre murmured. The ruby throbbing at her throat seemed to dim briefly, like a heart skipping. Cool embers can still be coaxed to blaze. If you would truly save this realm, let me burn the chill from him. Renly glared. Do that without his leave, and I shall set you on fire myself. I am no one's puppet. He stood and left the tent. Brienne lingered, one hand resting on chair arms recently vacated by her king. Do you love him still? The Red Woman asked softly. More than I fear you. Brienne's tone was iron wrapped in wool. Touch him against his will, and you test which burns hotter, which fire or oath steel. Melisandre's laugh was little more than a breath. In the coming snowstorms, you may need both. Daylight bled pale gold over gnarled pines when Renly's host reached the causeways of the neck. The land became a labyrinth of watery mirrors and hummock isles tufted with gray sedge. Will-o'-the-wisps bobbed at dusk, drawing gossiping pikemen off paths until seasoned guides clubbed scents back into them. The crannogmen materialized at firelines like ghosts, short, reed-cloak figures with frog spear staves and painted faces. Their leader introduced himself in quiet drawl as Howland Reed's eldest daughter, Mira, though she looked scarcely more than 16 summers. She spoke to Renly and Jon with the serenity of someone who knew swamps swallowed kings with equal appetite. My father holds Greywater watch, she said, pointing with spear toward shifting green mist. It moves, hard to siege what isn't still. We pledge safe passage so long as your fires don't scorch the marsh. We burn only what threatens, Jon said. She searched his eyes and seemed satisfied. Travel slowed to the rhythm of patient frogs. Wagons bogged, horses floundered. Yet each dusk saw the column a mile farther north, banners reflecting in black pools like dream ghosts. Loras Tyrell took to walking ahead of his horse to lighten its burden, smiling at villagers who peeked from cattail huts. Many had never seen polished plate. They knelt or just stared wide-eyed at the bright night of flowers now trudging through mud. At a narrow spit called Maiden's Step, Jon spotted a weirwood stump carved with the sigil of a spiral sun, a mark wildlings used to honor the children. Night courses settled there. Some men woke screaming from dreams of sap blood flowing white as milk. Melisandre gathered these dreamers at first light, asking what they'd seen. When they described a man of fire locked in embrace with a woman of snow, she dismissed them with a gesture sharp as an axe. Loras noticed, though said nothing. Brienne spent evenings drilling footmen, shield wall pivots, spear thrusts to kneecap height, formation torches for white attacks. She taught pairs to anchor shields overhead, creating tunnels of steel through which archers could fire dragonglass arrows. Soldiers grumbled until she demonstrated by breaking a hardwood pole with one sweeping blow from her greatsword. After that they obeyed quickly, though some whispered the Maid of Tarth must have giant's blood. Beyond White Harbor, winter's first real teeth found them. Snow hissed sideways, needling exposed cheeks. Renly ordered bright banners furled. Green and gold vanished under oilcloth. Jon's rangers scattered west and east, seeking signs of Walker outriders. What they returned with curdled stomachs. Entire hamlets silent, livestock frozen upright, eyes rimed in cerulean frost. River fords solid enough to bear ox carts in high autumn. They reached Winterfell on a moonless evening. Smoke still curled from chimneys, but walls bristled spears. Sansa Stark stood atop the gatehouse, steeling herself with every measured breath. She wore a cloak of direwolf fur and ice diamonds glinting in torchlight. Beside her, Maester Luwin's successor, an austere woman from the Citadel, held sealed scroll tubes. Jon rode to the iron-studded gate. "Sansa," he called, "open. Friends come to stand by your walls." Her voice rang strong. I see brother and I see strangers. Swear before the heart tree that none will harm my people. She spoke not to Jon but to Renly, whose silhouette she recognized from old tales of tourneys. Renly dismounted, removed gauntlet, and cut his palm with dagger edge. Snowflakes dissolved on his blood like sparks. By salt, smoke, and steel, he intoned, voice echoing. I swear any man under my banners who steals, rapes, or murders within Winterfell's lands dies by my own blade. The gate groaned open. Inside, stable courts glowed with braziers. Stark guards guided Southerners to barracks hastily cleared of rubble from Ramsay Bolton's last occupation. Sansa received Renly in the Great Hall, candles guttering beneath banners depicting the flayed man scratched out in tar and replaced by the dire wolf of snow-gray color. She bowed, a queen though no crown rested on red hair. I never thought to kneel to a Baratheon again, she said, voice low but firm. Then again, I never thought my brother would return from death. Renly studied her, grief lines too deep for her year's poise of steel. Debt circles between us, he answered. Your house once pledged me swords. I failed you. Let this be recompense. My army stands your army, my stores your stores. Sansa nodded. They will test your oath before the night is old. Scouts sighted whites near Last Hearth. Jon grimaced. Umber's Hall. Too close. He turned to Renly. We ride within the hour, small force. Fire arrows, dragonglass. I know the land. Renly crossed arms. Then we ride. Loras leads a vanguard. Brienne holds Winterfell with Sansa. Loras bristled. I stand by you. Renly shot him an affectionate but commanding glance. If Winterfell falls, no front matters. Guard these walls. He touched Loras's cheek. Armored steel left a faint smear of soot. A lover's benediction and farewell. Melisandre watched the exchange, unreadable. Inside her mind she saw threads tightening. Green thread, hope, twined around white thread, snow, each glowing red where she touched them. But a third thread, black-blue, wormed beneath. She feared it and longed to seize it at once. 24 riders thundered across snow plains under slivered moon. Jon led, with Renly half a length behind. Their breath plumed. Leather saddles creaked. Wolves howled unseen. They reached Last Hearth at dawn's blue cusp. The great keep smoked, a choking pall of burnt flesh and pine pitch. Bodies littered the courtyard in heaps, some charred to ash, some frozen in convulsed tableaus. A wooden palisade gate hung by one hinge, rent outward, attack from inside. Jon slid from saddle, scanning with heightened sense like ghosts. No white ambush came. Dawn kept them at bay, but scratch marks of ice burned along stone. Symbols of spiral suns and slashed stars. Renly approached burnt corpse piles where flames guttered weakly. He knelt, murmured a prayer strange and gentle. Words of the seven mingled with Lawler invocations. His palm hovered above charcoal bones. Faint heat radiated from his scar where his own life had restarted. They died fighting, Jon said, but they weren't enough. He gestured to sigils carved O. And hall doors, flayed man overlaying dire wolf overlaying stag. Walkers mock us. Renly stood. Then we answer. They formed pyres, soaked them with oil until smoke towered visible for leagues. Jon carved a new sigil in charred doorframe. Direwolf and stag side by side, bound by thorns of flame. Let any wight who wanders near know our wrath, he said. On their ride back, snow thickened. Jon felt numbness creeping in old knife wounds, yet Renly seemed to emanate warmth others in columns sought subconsciously, grouping near him as though his cloak radiated hearth heat. Halfway to Winterfell, they met a courier bent double by blizzard, bearing Raven's scroll from Eastwatch. A fleet off Skagos sighted sails of black ice, crewed by husks rowing without breath. The sea itself froze behind them, walkers crossing water. Renly read aloud for riders huddled against gale. They come by land and sea alike. We retreat to the wall. He crushed parchment in gauntlet. Our timeline shortens. Jon's mouth set. We melt the wall before they cross or hold until spring. No other choice. The wall is ice, Renly mused. But ice can boil if fire burns hot enough. They exchanged a glance heavy with prophecy neither dared voice. Back in Winterfell, Bran Stark returned that same dusk. He rode a sledge drawn by one shaggy horse, flanked by Mira and steel-eyed crannogmen. Bran's eyes, milky gray, saw more than mortal shapes. When he embraced Jon in the courtyard, he whispered, "The roots have shown me two flames, one green, one silver, a third yet to spark." His gaze slid to Renly. "Beware the shadow beneath the fire." Renly felt his heart stutter. "Speak plainly, lad." But Bran only smiled a child's sigh. Plain words carve crooked paths. He rolled inside carried by retainers. Melisandre approached Bran's departing form, parted crowd. She watched him with fascination and something like dread, for she sensed not flame within him but deep-seated stone-cold sap, older than her god. Sansa convened a war council in Winterfell Solar. Snowmelt dripped through cracked shutters. Brazier heat warped map parchment. Around the table gathered Renly, Jon, Melisandre, Loras, Brienne, Maester Elia, Howland Reed arrived that eve, Lord Wyman Manderly, and a bear-sized woman in sealskin, Alice Karstark, representing her newly repledged house. Jon outlined wildling migrations south of the Gift. Tens of thousands camped in deserted keeps along the King's Road. Some now turned white. "We cannot defend every village," he said. "Our stand must be decisive." Howland Reed laid down reeds bundled into patterns to illustrate swamp choke points. "Here the Bar Roland's narrow," he indicated, "between Umber Hills and Branchwater bogs. Dig trenches, seed dragonglass caltrops, oil the fields, force their masses into kill lanes." Manderly rumbled disagreement. "My knights fight from horseback, not ditches. Better meet them on open snows where lances drive." "They do not bleed," Jon snapped. "Your horses will panic, your lances shatter." Loras cleared throat. "Yet speed may still matter. When walkers raise fallen, quick cavalry can strike back lines, flame them before resurrection." Brienne tapped mailed finger on map. "We pair trenches with mounted sorties. Foot holds the line while knights flank with wildfire bombs." Sansa listened, then silenced room with raised palm. "Our resources: 3 barrels of wildfire courtesy of Tyrion's covert shipment, 17 chests of dragonglass arrowheads, 2 Valyrian blades, limited pitch. We cannot waste a drop." She turned to Melisandre. "And your magic? What can we expect?" The Red Woman's smile was small. "Miracles," she said. "But miracles eat lives. A Lord volunteer." She let gaze linger on Manderly. He scowled. Renly spoke.
"No sacrifices."
"We use steel, bow, and courage. One more resource remains." All eyes turned. "Dragons," Renly said. A hush fell thicker than snow. Loras frowned. "Daenerys Targaryen sits across the narrow sea in Meereen by last accounts. She calls herself queen in her own right. She may not lend her children to a rival king." Renly nodded. "So we must cease to be rivals. I will marry the Dragon Queen." The table burst with overlapping protests. Sansa's face went winter stone. Loras paled. Jon's brows knotted. Manderly barked a laugh. "You propose to wed a foreign usurper while you share brandy with northern hosts? Bold." Renly raised a placating palm. "A union of fireborn sovereigns, Stag Reborn and Dragon Mother, could bind continents. With dragons north, winter breaks." Brienne's voice trembled with caution. "What of your promise to the faith you swore days ago? 2 wives invites doubt." "I died once," Renly said. "The faith met no precedence for that either. They will adapt." Loras pushed away from table, metal chair scraping. "Did you plan this before leaving King's Landing? We share bed and plan war while you pen covenant with another." Renly's jaw flexed. "The realm rises above desire. You know I love you, but love may serve in other roles." His eyes softened. "You would be my Lord Commander of the Queen's Guard, first among equals. Your friend, not your lover," Loras whispered. He turned from the assembled and strode out, cloak snapping. Melisandre watched him depart. ruby flickering chilly gleam. Jon cleared throat. Dragons will help, but ships cannot cross the sunset sea in winter storms. And time shrinks. Renly faced him. Then we sail within a fortnight, small delegation, swiftest galley, south to White Harbor, across to Bravos, then Meereen aboard fastest windrunners. Brienne looked stricken. Leaving us to face first assault? He shook head. I leave you my armies, my counsel, my faith. If I fail to return in time, you've lost nothing but risk. If I succeed, dragons turn tide. Howland Reed rubbed gray stubble. Stark and Marsh will bleed while you chase storms on waves. That blood will be spilled anyway, Renly said. Unless we find fire hot enough. Melisandre's eyes burned approval. Lawler has shown me sails aflame beneath a red sky. East holds your answer. Sansa rose, voice flat. Very well, but Winterfell commands its own defense. If you leave, Lord Snow and I share authority. Renly nodded. So be it. The council broke like brittle ice shards. Jon caught up with Loras in corridor. We do what we must, he said. Loras wiped furious tears. Easy for you. Duty is all you know. I gave him my heart before he gave the realm his promise. Jon placed a hand gently on Loras's armored forearm. He still needs you. Ghost sniffed Loras's gauntlet, whining softly. Hold the north with me. When he returns, stand by him, or else I fear he comes back half the man who left. Stannis Baratheon's fleet skirted the arbor under storm clouds. Reports reached him of Renly's impending voyage east. A bitter grin cracked his stern mask. He flees north, then east. The throne sits empty save Tyrell fattens on it. He ordered Salador San to sail Blackwater Bay under Knight's cloak. Land spies at the capital. Should Tyrell hand slip, we strike. Davos prayed Holdfast Chapel, heart heavy. Every raven suggested more dread in every direction. He lit a tallow candle before statue of the mother, though sailors seldom prayed to her. Guide us, he whispered. Outside, lightning drew jagged sigils across horizon like cracks in the world's shell. Tyrion Lannister, no longer Hand, enjoyed relative obscurity in the royal court, which suited him as handless painter suits shadow. Over Arbor Red he read coded letters from Varys. Stannis raids Grain, Greyjoy fleet in disarray after Nightfire storms. Yet one parchment chilled him. Qyburn's secret experiments beneath the Maester's kennels. Subject 9 responded to wildfire infusion. Purple eyes iced. Resurrection partial. The dwarf muttered, Renly sets trend now. He toasted absent ghosts. 7 save us when corpses outvote the living. On the 3rd day of the new moon, Renly and Jon stood within Winterfell's godswood. Snow drifted in motes. Braziers around the heart tree sputtered. Bran sat among roots, pupils flooding white. Sansa, Brienne, Loras, Mira, Howland, Melisandre formed a circle. Each person held a dragonglass shard point down in frost. Bran's voice echoed from hollow trunk, deeper than child's lilt. Kneel, halves of the same sunrise. Renly and Jon knelt opposite the weirwood face. Blood dripped from their pricked palms onto roots. Steam hissed where it fell. Bran reached, though his eyes remained white-rolled, and placed each of their bleeding hands upon the other's wrist. Balance is forged, he intoned. Ice that remembers fire, fire that remembers ice. Together, Lightbringer. The ruby at Melisandre's throat flared so brightly Sansa shielded her face. Jon's scar lit beneath tunic. Renly's resurrected heart hammered. In the meeting of their clutched hands, a filament of pale gold light sprang, thin as spider silk, bright as dawn. It arced to Longclaw's pommel at Jon's waist, then leapt to Renly's sword leaning by the trunk. Both blades glimmered. A howl tore the air, ghost but modulated by something older. Wind whipped through branches, though no storm blew. Fires around perimeter died, then burst higher in colors. Green, white, red. Bran collapsed forward. Mira caught him. Light vanished. In sudden hush, only Renly and Jon remained clasped, breathing hard. Their swords settled to dusk-steel dullness. But each man felt warmth nested beneath breastbone. as though tethered across distance now irrelevant. Melisandre's voice trembled with awe. Azor Ahai split, two shadows cast by one flame. Brienne raised sword tip. Does prophecy name two kings? Prophecy scribes names in ash, Melisandre said. Wind can scatter, water blot, but meaning remains. They must stand together or fall alone. Bran stirred, blinked. Normal color returned. Night King rides. His whisper carried doom. He seeks not simply life but memory. Burned flesh he shrugs off. But if he claims the last green seer before roots deeper than winter, Sansa touched his hair. He will not. Howland Reed added, Mists shift in the neck. My people say reeds themselves freeze. Never before.
Renly met Jon's case.
We sail south tomorrow. Secure dragons. He squeezed Jon's forearm once.
Hold till I bring dawn.
Jon released his grip. Don't be late. White Harbor's docks thrummed with urgent activity. Lady Manderly's flagship, Leviathan's Grace, girded for ocean voyage. Its figurehead carved as Mare King raising pearl trident now bore hastily fastened wildfire lanterns for nights down Slaver's Bay. Renly boarded with Jon, Melisandre, Brienne, Loras, Varys in disguise, arranged quietly by Sansa. Believing spiders weave strong nets abroad. Mace Tyrell dispatched Lord Garland with a separate envoy trailing. On quayside, Sansa clasped Jon to breast. Bring dragons or bring yourself alive. I'll call that victory. She kissed his cheek, then turned to Renly. If you come back king of nothing, no Winterfell still welcomes men who fought for it. Renly bowed. Then I must bring everything. Snowflakes gusted. Sails unfurled. Leviathan's Grace slipped from harbor between ice floes creaking like blind gods gnashing teeth. From quarterdeck, Renly watched torch dots of Winterfell fade. A knot of loneliness twisted, yet paired with purpose unshakable. Below decks, Melisandre entered his cabin without knock. Storm ahead, she warned. Of sea or fate? Both. She drew a pouch. Specks of black glass, red coals, a flicker of captured flames swirling inside. When the hour comes, drop this upon deck. Wind will obey. She laid pouch down. And remember, dragonfire bows to no crown, but it loves heat. Feed it with truth. He raised brow. Whose truth? Mine is shifting sand these days. Truth of your heart. She stepped closer. What does it burn for? He saw images. Laughter with Loras beneath King's Landing's moon. Brienne's steadfast eyes. Jon Snow's frost-tinged destiny. Sansa's quiet strength. A dragon roaring across sky. His own child self pretending at knighthood in Storm's End. They flickered like film in lantern. For life, he murmured. She touched his chest over scar. Then live so fiercely night cannot forget your name. She left him staring out porthole at dark horizon where storm clouds massed. Lightning flashed violet, silhouetting shapes that might be sails or wings. At Winterfell, Jon wasted no time. He convened an inner war circle. Sansa, Bran, Brienne, Loras, persuaded to stay by Ghost of Honor, Lyanna Mormont, arrived with 62 bears hoisting flayed white skulls, Howland Reed and Tormund Giantsbane commanding remaining free folk. Together they drafted defense. Trenches at Oakenshield Field staked with obsidian pikes. Beacon towers every mile south to warn if walkers slip between lines. Ravens to the Vale again, to Dorne, even to Iron Islands, though Theon's sister now waged her own war of succession. Loras drilled cavalry in firebomb lance tactics. Brienne oversaw smiths forging chain nets studded with dragonglass shards to ensnare ice spiders rumored by wildlings. Bran sat among weirwood roots day long, searching for Night King's path. One evening ghosts overloaded Winterfell's godswood. Heart tree weeping sap tears that steamed on snow. Bran emerged from trance-like state, voice faint. He rides Viserion. The hall fell silent. Jon felt stomach drop. A dragon? How? Bran stared through Jon, seeing horizon others couldn't. Night King seized the corpse at Eastwatch's waters. He shapes dragonfire into ice. Wings will tear clouds in two. Bran's hand tightened on wheelchair. If Renly fails, the dragon will join them. Brienne whispered, "Then we fight dragon with dragon. Or with true Lightbringer," Jon said, though the sword at his belt lay inert. He wondered if his other half across the sea could stoke the blade alive before the sky turned black. South of Pentos, Leviathan's grace outran pirates thanks to Melisandre's storm pouch. Swirling red gale that hurled the galley ahead upon foaming crests. Yet 3 days from Slaver's Bay the sea turned glassy, wind dead. Black smoke smudged the skyline, Meereen in upheaval. Renly stood on prow surveying distant towers. "We arrive mid-chaos," Varys, cloaked as mute deckhand, whispered in his ear. "Reports say sons of the Harpy assassinated council. Queen Daenerys leads unsullied purging streets. Dragons loose over city, though her largest rarely lands." Brienne rested gauntlet hands on rail. "Walk into that uninvited, catch dragon flame before parleys," Renly considered. "Or prove worth amid battle. Heroes earn audiences." They rode upriver past burning barges. Bronze harpy heads toppled from walls. In Market Quarter, unsullied shield wall pressed masked insurgents into alleys. Renly leapt from swaying launch, sword drawn. Soldiers in green cloaks followed. He waded into melee, blade ringing. Each stroke slashed through spear shafts, but metal never struck flesh where innocent might be. He fought like dancer on coals, heat emanating. Jon fought beside him, Longclaw humming faint gold notes though still no visible flame. Ghost barreled through attackers, sending them sprawling. Brienne covered flank, shield battered by sling stones. A black-whiskered captain of Unsullied took note, bellowed commands. Soon harpies routed, casting masks into sewer grates. Streets quieted. The captain approached. "Who fights for us but wears no harpy?" Renly sheathed blade. "Renly Baratheon, king of the Seven Kingdoms, seeks audience with Daenerys Stormborn." The Unsullied's eyes widened a fraction. "The queen despises kings who call themselves so." Renly smiled. "Then let her burn me. If fire consumes a lie, truth will remain." He surrendered sword hilt to captain in sign of trust. Reluctantly, the eunuch escorted delegation through plaza strewn with smoldering braziers shaped like dragons. At Great Pyramid's base awaited gray-skinned Melisandre. She bowed and beckoned them upward. In the throne chamber, Daenerys stood barefoot on mushroom-shaped dais, white hair falling loose, silver rings around wrists. Drogon perched at broken arch, black wings rustling. His eyes fixed on Renly like twin furnaces. Renly knelt. "My queen," he began, but she cut him. "I am no man's queen save those who choose freedom." Her gaze flicked to Ghost, then to Longclaw. "Yet you reek of magic." "I reek of death returned." He lifted chin, revealing faint scar from Shadow Assassin. "Brought back by fire to save realm from night." Her eyebrows arched. "Another savior." She motioned. Grey Worm presented charred harpy mask as offering. Renly spoke. "Winter's darkness marches south on dragon of ice. I beg your flames. Marry me and our joined forces burn the night." Gasps from counselors. Daenerys paced. "I crossed world to break chains. I'd shatter them anew for any crown placed on my head." "Why wed?" Jon stepped forward. "Because unity wins wars. I knelt to Rob once. I'd kneel again if it saves lives." She assessed him. "And who are you?" "Jon Snow. Once of Night's Watch, now." He glanced to Renly. "A sword in darkness seeking dawn." A subtle shiver passed through Daenerys. "Name of House Stark, old rumors." She nodded slow. "Show me this darkness." Melisandre stepped forward, ruby blazing. "Let me conjure vision in flames." She waved toward brazier. Fire whooshed tall, images swirling. Undead Legion, Night King astride blue flame Viserion. Snow burying fields. Figure of Renly and Jon standing within furnace glare. Dragons wheeling overhead. The council recoiled. Dany watched, tears beading firelit eyes. "I believe," she whispered. Renly rose. "Then choose. Alliance or separate doom." Drogon lowered head, nostrils steaming. He sniffed Renly's chest, exhaled smoky breath that rose curling. Ember motes danced where it touched Renly's scar, but flesh did not burn. The dragon drew back, rumbling approval or warning. Daenerys stepped forward, placing palm over Renly's heart, feeling warmth unnatural. Your fire is not mine, but it does not fear mine. She turned to Jon, lifted his hand to her chest. Under silk her heart beat fast. You bring cold and warmth together. She faced Renly again. I will fly north. Marriage we will discuss after victory, if victory remains worth marriage. Renly bowed. Dragons first, vows later. Letters flew on swifter wings than ravens. Unsullied would garrison White Harbor. Dothraki riders would cross skirling water via hired Braavosi barges. Dragons would fly ahead with a cadre small. Jon wrote Sansa, "Expect us on wings." She read by flickering hearth, Bran sleeping beneath firs. Outside, snow whirled thick. She whispered, "Hurry." 2 nights later, Bran woke shrieking. Jon's letter still on desk. "The wall is broken," he gasped. All within hearing felt blood chill. Night King rides south now. Dragon screams ice. He clutched blankets. He will reach Winterfell before the new moon unless Sky stops him. Brienne rallied soldiers. Loras hugged Brienne once before donning rose enamel breastplate darkened by soot. "Tell me we hold," he said. "We hold," she assured. Outside ramparts, wind carried distant roar, neither wolf nor storm. Men stared northward, seeing only swirling dark but hearing flapping like sails of Titanic ship. As Renly's fleet readied departure from Meereen, Drogon ascended with Renly, Daenerys, and Jon in makeshift saddle. Melisandre chanted below. Lawler banners snapped. Rhaegal and Viserion, still living bronze, took Sky behind. Dany shouted over wind, "Your heart beats like furnace. Does it fear?" "Heights." Renly laughed, exhilaration scorching icy dread. Only fear wasted breath. They soared, desert shrinking. Great grass sea rolled beneath. Drogon increased speed, wings cracking thunder. Night soon blanketed world. Stars spilled frost. Yet dragonfire radiated warmth such that Renly's cloak whipped but never chilled. Jon looked back to silhouette of Meereen, distant bonfires marking freedmen's celebrations. "All free men and women," he murmured, arms gripping saddle. Daenerys heard. "Let's keep them that way." At Eastwatch's ruined gate, the Night King paused atop undead Viserion. His blue glare swept south where auroras flickered. He lifted one pale hand. The Black Ice fleet beached on frozen shore behind him, white hordes massed. He opened mouth, a roar like glaciers calving cracked sky. On Dragonback far south, Renly felt heart seize. Jon gasped. Drogon faltered mid-beat, then roared defiance. Dany hissed, "He feels his brother." Renly placed hand on Jon's armored shoulder. A thread of warmth jumped. Drogon steadied. Renly's sword at belt glowed faint lines. They pressed north, racing horizon. Behind them, Melisandre's storm magic filled sails of fleet. Above, stars wheeled witness. Ahead, Winterfell's torches flickered lonely in immensity of white. Trenches shimmered with dragonglass shards. Archers lined walls, hands trembling but faces resolved. Brienne raised Oathkeeper, its Valyrian ripples reflecting comet tails. Loras mounted silver destrier, wildfire lance poised. Ghost waited by Bran's wheelchair, hackles raised. Sansa paced parapet, snow in her hair like shards of crown. She whispered tonight, "Come soon, my kings of dawn." And across snows as yet untouched, the first dark specks of the dead appeared, an avalanche of silence advancing under shattered moonlight. Approximately 5,100 words. Let me know when you're ready to continue, and we'll carry the clash of dragons and walkers to its breaking point. As alliances test, blades ignite, and prophecy's last threads weave dawn or doom.